Table Talk is brought to you by Livingston Family Dentistry and Oak Park Residential.
Livingston Family Dentistry knows the value of a healthy, beautiful smile. With over 30 years of experience, Dr. Ronald and Dr. Blake Livingston and their friendly staff are committed to making you feel comfortable, informed, and satisfied. So whether it's routine dentistry, cosmetic improvement, or complete restoration, bring your smile back to life at Livingston Family Dentistry, located at 13724 Woodward in Highland Park. Call now, 313-883-3050. If your teeth are not becoming to you,
then you should be coming to us.
Livingston Family Dentistry knows that good dental care ensures overall wellness, and healthy teeth and gums can perfect your smile. With over 30 years of experience, Dr. Ronald and Dr. Blake Livingston take the time to explain every treatment. Their modern office and friendly staff are committed to making you feel comfortable, informed, and satisfied. Located at 13724 Woodward in Highland Park, call now, 313-883-3050. If your teeth are not becoming to you,
then you should be coming to us.
Good morning, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. I'm here today, and I have one brand new co-host, and I have another friend of the show who's been a co-host before. So I'll start with my left, your right. Kevin?
Kevin Fisher, the Executive Director for NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, no problem whatsoever. No problem. And?
I'm Kelly Garrett. I am the Mayor Pro Tem of Lathrop Village, the city of Lathrop Village.
Yes, the city of Lathrop Village has how many people?
Roughly about 4,100 people.
Oh, it's a small city, but it's a nice city.
It's a beautiful city. It's a metropolis in the middle of Southfield.
Well, I really like it. Now, we usually do on this day first. Ken Coleman had one set up. I checked it out before I left home, and then all of a sudden my iPad isn't working for some reason. But we're going to get ready to go right into the topics. And one of the topics deals with what has been happening this week nationally. It's been somewhat, well, I told people the man was crazy. But what do you think? Well, first it starts off a week ago with, is that locker room talk? I mean, I've heard men kind of talk bad, but.
You know, I'm going to say what many other men have said. Not in any locker room I've ever been in. Men talk about women, yes, in locker rooms, and we talk about attractive women and all that, but nothing to the degree that Donald Trump described. And I've been in a lot of locker rooms. I've played sports, I've coached sports, I hang out with a lot of my guy friends, and none of my friends talk about women like that.
Right. Well, especially when you're subject to be recorded.
Right.
And it's amazing to me how many people have made excuses for that situation. Even women have made excuses for it.
It's indefensible. And I was listening to the radio on my way here this morning, and I heard a radio interview, a response from Curt Schilling, the retired baseball pitcher, and how he could defend or try to explain away how Donald Trump could look at a 10-year-old child in the mall and say, I'll be dating her in 10 years.
Right.
Those are the comments that only come from a person who's having some sort of thoughts like a pedophile.
Or a psychopath.
That too.
When I heard it, it really, it didn't shock me. That's the unfortunate
No.
part of it, that it did not. It does disturb me that people are trying to make excuses for him. What disturbs me also is that he reminds me of my kid and his friends when they get in trouble. Instead of taking the accountability of what you did or what you said, it's always, well, such and such did much worse. And that's what I get from him when he points to, well, that's nothing like what Bill Clinton did when we were in the locker room.
Oh
It's
my
like, but
God.
you know what? Bill Clinton's not running right now.
he has used that to death,
Yes,
hasn't
he
he?
has.
But his people are saying, why do you keep on this trajectory?
Right.
When he sits up and says, if anything comes back to me, I'm going to say more about Bill Clinton. Well, I don't care. I mean, how long? It's been 20 something years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and the shame of it is, and I like your analogy or comparison with the kids because I've done the same. Donald Trump is very much like a child. He takes no responsibility for his actions. He deflects to other people. But one of the things I noticed about him very on in his campaign, very early on, is that if you do not agree 100% with him, he will call you a name like a child on the
Absolutely.
playground.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he does it to everybody. The minute you don't agree with him, he calls you a name. And
Yeah.
it's childish.
I was watching the news this morning, and one of the ladies that says that he groped her on the airplane, he said, "Look at her,"
Exactly.
I know.
and I said,
He's still saying
"Wow,
this.
yeah."
He's still saying
And
this.
and my thoughts are, are people really buying into that's okay? But the fact is, he's saying that basically, if she didn't look the way she did, then maybe I did it. I mean,
Well, I felt even more sorry for her. I caught it last night, and she actually had to go back and get pictures of herself 30 years ago.
Did
to,
she?
yes, to
Oh,
justify.
no.
One of her girlfriends was on an interview on CNN last night, and she said, well, when he says, well, look at her, he says, you're looking at me now as a 73-year-old lady, but 35 years ago, this is what I look like. And it's a shame that she felt that she needed to prove that she was more attractive when she says this
younger.
occurred. It is an absolute, not only insult to women, I think it's an insult to men. I just, I know we are not perfect, but I have a lot more respect for men, at least the men that I associate with, and I don't want to be categorized like that. I don't want women, I don't want my daughter, I don't want my son to think that that's acceptable behavior and that's how men act. So as embarrassed and offended as I am for women, I'm equally as offended for us men.
I think that's horrible. I just think that as women growing older, we already have our sets of issues on, just knowing that when you wake up each day, you go to the mirror and say, this is not the person I remember I used to
Right.
be 10 years ago or
But
yesterday.
you're getting better, really. I think so.
Absolutely.
There's so many ways. Yeah, I think of 35 years ago, I might have been a Cadillac with no air conditioning, looking good, but not as much in here.
Right,
and
right.
you got to think about that.
Right,
Kelly.
absolutely. That's
You
a sad.
still look 21,
Oh,
if that.
I need that every single day.
No, but I know what you're saying, and
That's
to
a
have
struggle.
somebody who's running for president
Right.
who looks like, damn it, the hell. I'm sorry. I saw a picture of him yesterday. His jowls are about this big. Who does he think? Who does he see
Just
when he
idea.
looks into a mirror?
The idea of him, like, the women were saying that he would grab them and kiss them. I said, at that point, it just seems like I would just fall out on the floor, just dead at that point. Because just the thought of him
Or
coming
just-
in.
You'd act like you're having a seizure. But, another thing was a couple of days ago, or 3 days ago, he said he's now unshackled. And unshackled, you mean he could be worse?
Yeah, he can.
That's scary.
That really was him trying to exhibit some sense of self-control to continue to win the support of the Republican Party. But now he's at this point where so many people have run away from him. He said, okay, you really want to see the real me? Watch this. So
That
I
was
think
the real him?
there's a lot more to come from O'Donnell. He's going to show his real colors. We haven't seen the real Donald yet. You see glimpses.
That's very scary.
It is.
Yeah, it's scary, but then again, too much of anything is abuse. And I think you could only beat a dead horse so much.
Right.
I think people are coming away from this like, this is really beyond the pale, because nobody's ever seen an election like this.
Right.
And from yourself, having run for office, character means a lot, doesn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. I remember when I was running, first running, I had someone that actually went through my Facebook, and she took out everything that could even begin to look like, would change somebody's mind to vote for me. So it is all about character. It's about who you are, not only just in public, but in private too, because it's now that we live in this day and age of videos or the phones and things like that. You can't be one person at one time and another person at another. The one thing, and this sounds bad, that I'll give Donald Trump is he is who he is all the time.
Exactly.
Even, I mean, granted, he doesn't say the abusive things about women just straight out in front of a microphone, but basically his actions show that that's who he is.
Yeah, what's so funny with the tape last Friday about what he does, he starts kissing in the Tic Tac even put something on.
Yeah, isn't that a
He
shame?
said, "We do not endorse." What he said,
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
That is so bad. But here, these women said, "This is what he did. He groped and so forth and so on." They're just saying the same thing he basically said
Exactly.
last week. But what got me were certain people think that black people own the word shackled. I heard people say, "Isn't that black people? We're the ones who were shackled in slavery." No, it wasn't. I have heard several people say he just stole our word.
It's not synonymous with black people, just like inner city.
Yeah.
It's not synonymous with black people.
Right.
He can have the word shackled. I'm okay with that.
But what gets me, and I have to say it because there was a debate this past, it was a debate this past Sunday. How he sits up and says he won the debate. He said they knew I just beat her behind in that debate. No, he didn't. He sees things the way he wants to see them. And I heard an interview with Mark, I forgot the guy's last name, who really owns those Survivor series, the guy who executive producer of Apprentice. He said what was all important to him when they first started doing The Apprentice, for Donald Trump, what was so important were ratings, just like polls are so important. I saw something on TV this morning where he said, well, he's ahead 3 points in the poll. No, he's not in the national poll.
Right.
But he fixes things to be okay for him to live with. But last night, I started laughing. My daughter heard me laughing. She said, what are you laughing at? Donald Trump was saying, because you know how the news media, they switch back and forth to him in his speeches. He was sitting up talking about, yes, I could have been comfortable. I could have been in my apartment. I could have been living the life of Riley, basically, and, instead of being in this horrific situation. Well, he created the situation.
Well, it's interesting. I saw a news story earlier this week that suggested the whole reason Donald Trump ran was because of the way President Obama roasted him at the press gala.
At the correspondence dinner.
Yeah, they said that was really the catalyst because Obama laid into him, and he had it coming. And it's just like when we were kids growing up. If you can't take it, then don't dish it out. And Donald Trump couldn't take it, and so many of even his own people said at that correspondence dinner, you could literally see the steam coming out of his ears. And they said they are sure that it was at that point that he decided, I'm going to show Barack Obama by forcing him to be the person to hand the keys over to me to the White House. And that's his motivation. But that's his ego. That's his maniacal ego where he sees polls the way he wants to. He sees ratings the way. If he says it, it is so. How many times have we heard him say, trust me, and then back it up with absolutely nothing?
Right.
But it's just trust me because I say it, so it must be so. And you should accept it because I've got all these people flocking behind me who are nothing more than yes men, who tell him and agree with him with whatever he wants. If he wants to say the sky is green today, it's green. And he's got an army of people walking behind him telling him that instead of, no, Donald, it's blue.
He has people from behind him also that are saying, well, I don't think that it's green. Well, it could be a little bit of a shade of green.
Yeah.
Maybe, that they're still hedging on
If you
whether or
close
not.
one eye
Yeah.
and tilt
And
your head
squint,
this way, you
yeah.
see a little green.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said about the roast because I've always thought that this whole election or his campaign was a joke. Every day I wake up like, okay, somebody's gonna say we all were punked and that
Oh,
he's
everybody
really not running.
Everybody thought this was a joke from the beginning and woke up and like, oh my God,
This
he's
is
the
really
nominee.
happening.
This is happening.
But Michelle Obama gave a speech yesterday. Did you get to
I
it?
saw some of it.
She was very strong.
Yeah.
And then they said this morning, I was watching Morning Joe, a little of that. They were saying, because Obama, her husband, gave a speech yesterday also. They said they've never had a couple who can just throw out the speeches that much and jammed. And then this one lady on the show, Katty Kay, who is British, said, well, John F. Kennedy, and what about his wife, Jackie? They said, oh, no, Jackie couldn't talk like that. But, it seems like sometimes, every time some black people are highlighted, somebody wants to come in, no, we got to take some of that
Right.
away.
Right. Absolutely.
But she just laid it down. She didn't mention his name, but she just laid it down on how we as women and men should think.
Well, history will show, history will tell the story of the success of the Obama presidency, both he and Michelle. And I take nothing away from JFK or Jackie, but I think history will show not only their elegance and sophistication, but the fact that they were able to accomplish so much when they had so many against
There's
them.
so much adversity. Have you ever met President Obama?
No, ma'am. I wish.
Well, I figure all politicians meet,
Get
Not-
invited to the mayor's.
I go to the
thing.
mayor's things, but no, it's a little city. Not yet. It's on my bucket list, just like meeting you.
Oh, no. Okay, so here we are, 3 weeks out,
About
three
3
and
weeks
a
out.
half weeks out. What are your projections for the presidency?
Projections or wishes?
Well, okay, yeah, they have to be peppered with a little bit of wish.
I still project that Hillary Clinton is going to win. My question is by how much? That's what I wonder. Because I think that Donald Trump is bringing out the people that have always been there, but kind of didn't have a stage to really put all of their hate, racism just on the table and not care about it. I don't believe that the United States of America would really elect somebody like Donald Trump. He is somebody, he flat out says that he's going to do revenge on how many people if he gets into office. He already said that the first thing he's going to do is he's going to make sure that Hillary goes to jail. You don't think that we have better things to do with our country than proving a point of what you thought was going on? So I believe that people are going to they're going to know, or they're going to vote the way that it should go, and it should go towards
Then
Hillary.
they talked about a lot of closet Donald Trump voters, people who may say I'm voting one way but end up voting for him. I just don't believe or hope that America is not that much immersed in hatred, because there's a lot of hatred connected with what he says, what he does.
And some of it, which I've been listening to people and I've been reading some things, is that sometimes it's not even about the hatred. Some people are falling for that old, he's a businessman. We need a businessman to run our country. Kind of like, I don't know how our state is right now. We needed a businessman to run our state, and look how that happened.
Look what
So
happened.
I think that that is something that kind of makes me a little nervous, because he said in the first debate something towards black people is that the Democrats have failed black people. Everything that you needed, we didn't show up and do what we said we were going to do. And I'm afraid that there's going to be a group of people that go, you know what? You're absolutely right. The last time I voted for da-da-da-da, this happened. This didn't happen. My situation didn't change. My neighborhood's still the same. But as soon as I voted for somebody else, look at all the miraculous things that started happening. That's the only fear that I have about it.
Well, I heard that comment and it concerned me initially as well. But then I thought about there's a degree of correctness to what he said. I think we can look back and say, politicians make promises that are not kept. Sometimes it's not because they didn't want to keep them, but they weren't able to keep them. And you do have some politicians that tell you what you need to hear to get you to
Like
vote.
Donald Trump.
Yeah, but here's
and
the thing.
Hillary sometimes.
Here's what I found myself also thinking. At least Democrats take the time to court our vote, where Republicans don't even bother taking the time to lie to us. So, so, and I know that wasn't said politically correctly, but they don't even bother to try to make you feel like your vote is valuable. They're not. I can't think of a Republican that has made me feel like they were courting the African American vote. Not in my lifetime. So I will at least give, if he wants to throw that jab at Democratic candidates and say, well, they promise you, but they don't deliver. Well, at least you took the time to research and say what's important to these people instead of, you don't matter anyway. I can go it alone without you. So,
Well, we could just take our own state, and you brought it up, Snyder, this businessman. Look at what's happening in our state. Look at what's happening in our schools. Let's go to schools in Detroit. I want to especially mention Detroit because, to me, they are building a permanent underclass. I mean, they're not. How can you refuse to give funding? How can you just give half of what's needed? I mean, just look at that. Also look at, of course, Flint. I mean, Flint is a big deal.
That one, just to talk about Flint, I went on a missions trip to Mexico. I had to brush my teeth, wash up by bottled water. But where I'm at, it's basically, it's a third world country where I was at and what I was doing. I was on a missions trip. Now think about someone that is at home, that's paying a mortgage, that's paying insurance, that goes to a job every day, but you have to wash up and brush your teeth with bottled water, and you don't think that this man needs to be held accountable for what he did to the city?
well, here's the other thing. Trump brought that out in his rally when he was here in Michigan. He said, remember there was a time where we built all the cars in Detroit and you couldn't drink the water in Mexico, and now we're building
Right.
cars in Mexico and can't drink the water in Detroit or in Flint. Well, guess who who facilitated that Flint situation? His Republican
Right.
governor. He fails to finish the thought
Right.
to say, how did we get here?
Absolutely.
Brenda, you talked about, the businessman, the attraction of having a businessman run the state. With as much respect, with all due respect to Governor Snyder, everything he's touched and tried to privatize has gone to hell. Flint, DPS, the Grand Rapids VA hospital, the prison food, and now he's trying to privatize in my realm what we know as community mental health.
Right.
And I said, with everything else that you've touched and failed, why are you even entertaining messing with the community mental health system? When do you learn to just leave it alone? And so I really struggle with that. And I'm a businessman. There's a certain application for business, but you cannot, and this is where you get in trouble in government or elected officials, you cannot put bottom line before people. You can't. Now, I'm one of those people who strongly believes I want to be as efficient, cost effective. I want the best value that I can get, understanding that value does not always mean cheapest, but value. But at the end of the day, we are making decisions that affect people's lives, their quality of life, and sometimes literally life or death. And you cannot reduce that to the lowest bidder.
Absolutely. And mental health is something that Engler started fooling with. And then, I mean, how can you not? It's only, it seems, when it hits their backyard,
Right.
all of a sudden it's important.
Right. Unfortunately, there's a lot of issues like that. You hear about it and you kind of go, That's horrible that's happening. But until it does hit your backyard,
Yep.
you don't have a grasp, or you don't even have a understanding of the importance of it.
Right. Well, we're going to move on along. The new African American Smithsonian Museum doesn't highlight Justice Clarence Thomas like his real career like they should, or they say they should, because he was only the second Supreme Court justice, right?
The second black.
But they do highlight the Anita Hill case. What do you think? Do you think he deserves? I think that whether we like it or not, in museums they have the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I think history should be accurately reflected. As you said, whether I like it or not, whether I like the individual or not, I think history should be accurately reflected.
I like the way you said that, because I had this conversation yesterday, and when I think about the Clarence Thomas situation, that is the first thing that comes to my mind. Yes, and then the second is he's the Supreme Court justice, and then the fact is that he's the second, black Supreme Court justice. But the first thing that stands out is, the fact is that sexual harassment in the workplace, was birthed from this situation. I agree that everything should be accurate. And I had this discussion yesterday about this, and I was saying, they were saying that it shouldn't be a part of it, but I'm like, that was a part of history. That
Exactly.
did happen,
Right.
though.
Exactly.
And then it was, well, she lost, but I'm like, she lost, but she moved a whole movement,
Right.
kind of like why
Right.
we're having an issue with Donald Trump with sexual harassment, and why there is a law, or a part of, I forgot what it is, that was signed into law right after he was confirmed. But
But it brought notice to workplace harassment.
and what it really looks like, it's not just where somebody touched you, it's where you're saying a joke, or you say something about someone's, the way they're shaped, that is considered harassment.
Well, and it's no less valid because she lost the case. That's not the relevant issue, because we all know in court it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And
Right.
then it's also, how do the people on the jury or the judge view it? Because as much as we like to believe justice is blind, it's not always. And
No,
and
it's
and
not.
there have been many cases that should have been won that were lost because I didn't have the right piece of evidence. I mean, it could be
Well,
any
you look
reason.
locally. It could be the fact that you don't have the right money.
Exactly.
gonna say,
I didn't have the right
yeah.
attorney.
Yeah.
I was involved in some civil litigation many years ago, and my attorney just didn't. He wasn't as qualified as he should have been, and the other side's attorneys were just better. It was just that simple. And it wasn't that we weren't right, and it wasn't that it wasn't anything except for tactically they were better than we were. And I would even say that in that case, the jury makeup played a role. But I don't cry over spilled milk about it. It is what it is.
I think that it's important for it to be in the museum, because I think that Anita Hill represents a lot for black women too. The fact is that she testified in front of the majority, if I'm not mistaken, were white men,
Yes, they were.
and that's intimidating within itself.
Right.
And believe me, I've walked into many meetings where I am the only, not only just the only black person, but the only black female. And for us, we consider kind of like a double negative at that point. But just to have that type of strength, because I can't say that I would be able to. I probably oppose.
But think about it. Okay, everybody, I got to go back to this. Everybody talks about these women are Johnny come latelys. Why didn't they say this, that, and the other thing? Many women have been harassed in the workplace. I know. I'm sure you know. And there's some ways, a lot of us just kind of got out of it, joked out of it, different ways, or have been harassed and asked things. I'm trying to just march around this that we maybe never ever have revealed.
Well, I think there are many cases where women have been harassed. Unfortunately, I think women accept that It's part of life. It's part of the game. One of the
I
contractors.
think more so used to accept that. Now it's a little different with the EEOC and other things.
Well, yeah, but one of the people who've come out and reported against Trump, and I don't recall her name, but she's a contractor, and she said that Trump was inappropriate with her several times, and they said, "Well, why did you continue to deal with him?" She said, "Because I'm trying to run a business." She's like, at that time, I was one of very few women in the construction business, and I was trying to run my business. So you just accept it. And then, when we talk about why do women not report for 20 years and why they're not coming out, now there are many that's unfair. That's like children who don't report abuse, and there are many psychological reasons that people don't just, as soon as it happens, go run in and call the police. There are many reasons for that.
I think it's because we second guess ourselves. Also, that's kind of like if
that's part of
somebody
it.
was being abused. It's kind of like I know someone that is in a abusive marriage, and when talking, because I'm on the outside, you need to leave. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. Are you crazy? All that. But then when I'm listening, it's, well, I didn't do this or I did do this. So you second guess yourself. And then the fact is that as a woman, you're already not getting equal pay. You're already not supposed to be in the positions that we are in. So then you have a harder time. I walked into a meeting yesterday and it was funny. I was totally overlooked where no one really said two words to me. No
Acknowledged
introduction,
you?
no acknowledgement whatsoever. I knew the people in the room, and I said, okay, maybe it's because I have my workout clothes on. No, I don't work out. I just like to wear the outfit. But, but I walked in there, and it's completely, utterly, like I was not there. So then, because of who I am, I got a chair and I pulled it up to the table. I said, are you all having a meeting? And they're like, yeah, we're having a meeting about blah, blah, blah. That's when I said, I'm Kelly. I'm the mayor pro tem of Lathrop. And then it was like, I'm like, yeah, go figure. And so I can understand where someone might not have the courage to step up and say, this is what happened, or this is what I do, or, let me not say anything because I want to keep my position. I want to keep this money flow. I got to feed my kids. I got to keep my house. There's so many different things to it of why a woman would not come forward to say, you know what, he was massaging my shoulders for a long time as I'm typing up whatever, or he was saying some crude joke, and I felt obligated that I had to laugh because it was my boss, or this is somebody I was going to do business with. There's a lot of variables to that.
I've told this story before, and I don't know, we got right back on women and harassment. That this, what's his name, Thomas. He just brings out things. My son was a bagger at Holiday Market. He was the first kid black bagger there in Royal Oak. And during this time, and they had the hearings on, he would go outside to collect buggies. This one lady, a white lady, she shoved her buggy into his legs and said, I won't be your wet dream boy.
Oh, my.
To a 14-year-old or 15-year-old kid. And he said, Mom, what was she talking about? I mean, but it had been on the Clarence Thomas hearings where he told her, you were mine.
Right.
And that's what they saw. This is what they think black men, that's all they want. And it's just so unfair. It's horrible. It's really, really horrible what happens, but it's about time. It just seems like if this happened 20 years ago or 25 years ago with Donald Trump, what would have been the conversation? Would it be the
Outrage, or would it be the...
would it be the same impact as it is now? 25 years ago.
I don't know. It's interesting to me that he continues to exhibit the same behavior, though. He says, I apologize, I made a mistake, it was 25 years ago. But just in his response to the newswoman who said he was all over her, his initial response was, well, look at her. he still exhibits that behavior. Donald Trump, as you said before, he is who he is, and he can't help but show you who he is. He can't hide it. So if it was a one-time incident, and that doesn't make it right at all, something that happened 20 years ago, and there was no documented evidence that it had ever happened since, that'd be one thing. But he continues to do it. He can't help himself.
Right.
To point out a 10-year-old girl and say, I'm going to be dating her in 10 years, that's sick.
That
That's
is,
sick.
like I said, psychopath.
Yeah.
Well, he said he'd date his daughter if he
Well, yeah.
could.
On the
I
Howard
mean, he said she looks so good. I would date her if I wasn't her father.
on the Howard Stern show, he referred to her as a nice piece of
ASS.
His
own
daughter.
daughter.
You know, I thought I read that, but I just knew that I was reading something wrong, and that I was putting together my own troubled
Said
mind.
his wife and his daughter are nice pieces of. Okay.
Well, something happened here in the city. You know, they're building that arena on Woodward Avenue. I always say on Woodward because it's right up off the
Yeah.
curb. I mean, you go down there and say, dang, it's right here, right on Woodward Avenue. That's going to be a quagmire. I tell you, that's going to be a quagmire down there. But they're being fined because they're not using 50% Detroit workers.
Yep.
Any thoughts on that?
Keep finding them. For me, they signed an agreement that that's what they would do, and they're not doing it. And so I would hope that the city continues to find them and make good. Don't find a back door down the road that lets them off the hook on the fines. Because I think, I talk to people about some of the problems we have in Detroit with city services and many other things. And I think we have to hold people accountable, and for things as simple as paying your property taxes or whatever the case may be. But I actually support having the arena downtown. I look forward to it because I like anything that will help grow the city. But I also think that if you said you were going to make sure that at least 50% of the employees or workers came from the city of Detroit, that is exactly what you should do. And to be honest, I think they've been fined $500,000 so far. I don't think that's enough.
Right.
I think it should have been more.
Thoughts? Why are you laughing?
Oh, because I can see both sides of the fence, to be quite truthful.
I bet I know where you're going to go, but go ahead.
I agree. If you had a contract or have a contract saying that you're going to do A, B, and C, you need to do A, B, and C. And it's if they agreed to have 51% of the residents in there, then they should do that. Mm-hmm. I understand that. We want to build in our city. You want to spark economic development. Mm-hmm. You also want to have it where you're spending your money. You have people from the community spending their money. Just have that kind of cyclical economics going on. But I also know that we need to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have enough employees to do the
Trained
job,
employees. I know
that's
what you were
that's
going for.
another problem.
Well, I agree with you. I knew that's where you were going to go, and I agree. And, Brenda had me on a couple of months ago, and we talked about responsibility, personal responsibility, specifically among us in the African American community. We can't complain and not be prepared to participate. For example, people always talk about blessings. I was like, well, you have to put yourself in a position to receive a blessing. We have to make sure that we have enough skilled labor available to do those jobs. And it's incumbent upon us, and I'm not going to hang this on the city, I'm not going to hang it on the state. It's incumbent upon us as individuals to put ourselves in a position where we can grow and prosper and not have the expectation that something should be given to us when we're not ready for it. And I think I've lived my life that way. I try, my parents raised me not to make excuses. My parents raised me to be very responsible. And I love all people. I certainly love our people. And the conversation, the show that we did a few months ago had to do with the fact that we have to be honest with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you can't fight for 15 if you're not qualified, if you don't have a skill set that will earn you $15 an hour. To indict, and I know I'm getting a little off subject, but to indict McDonald's, I think is wrong. And I agree with you. The job needs to get done. And so if there was an available pool of Detroit residents qualified to work on that project, then the Illich family or the construction company has every right to adhere to that contract. If there's not a pool, then that's something else. But I'll go back and say this. If you had a concern that there wasn't the necessary pool of people available, then you shouldn't have put it in the contract. Don't put it in the contract just to make it look good. Because I used to write contracts. I used to write pretty big contracts. And one of the things that I learned is you don't put things in contracts you already know you can't live up to, because now you look bad.
Wow. Michelle was just sending me something saying that the unions will get Detroit workers, but then they will eventually replace them with selected workers. That's very interesting. But, you know, I think what's going to happen is, I'm going to go back. There's so many training programs out here, so many. We have to just get up and go and pass the drug test.
You see, I'm trying to be real quiet.
I see you. Say it, please.
Because I truly can see both sides.
Sure.
And the thing
Right.
is, I was just talking to someone about this situation. And the fact is that there was a room full of, it was 14 people that they had the opportunity to go to a training, skills training school, where while you're in the school learning a trade, you're getting paid. One person showed up. One person showed
Yeah.
up.
Wow.
So that's when you have to start saying, well, okay, well, you know, what do I do in that situation? I'll give you another example. We, as black people, and this is totally, again, you know, the world according to Kelly, once we arrived, we taught our children, you go to school, you go to college, you look for a job. Now it's coming back where, you know, we are losing our skilled tradesmen because they're starting to retire, and we need
Right.
to, you know, to have more people in that field. Well, now you're telling the kids, because they're doing it at my son's school, why don't you go to a trade school, learn a trade? And oh my God, oh no, you know, that is just so, you know, you have to go to college. Okay, let me get this right. Trade school, you were in trade school, you're making money while you're there. Then when you get finished, you have a job. You have a job because you have a specialty. Or you can go to school, then go to college to look for a job, and you have debt.
Absolutely. We were just talking about this on my first guest this morning. You know, so many of the the skilled trades people they could build their own businesses
Absolutely.
from what they
Absolutely.
know. It's very, very, very important.
Well, and it goes back to, you know, when I was coming out of high school, I think I was caught in that transition of to be successful, you have to go to college and get a degree. But we were starting the conversation about going to trade school. And the fact of the matter is, plumbers, master electricians, those people make pretty good money.
Yes, they do.
And so
money.
Yes, they do.
And the conversation also was, not everybody is cut out to go to a university. So
Absolutely.
we should not
I
look
tried
down
to
on
tell
our
them that, and they forced me.
yeah. We should not look down on our young people, but we should encourage them. Kelly, just as you said, it's a shame that there's an opportunity for you to acquire a trade and get paid while you're learning that trade, and we don't show up. And guess what? We can't blame anybody else but us.
Right.
We have to take on that responsibility. So I don't want to be disrespectful or demeaning to anybody, but we can always find a way to do the things we want to do. We had the NAMI walk a couple weekends ago down in Belle Isle, and I had to be down there 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going down Jefferson, and I think there's a Mr. Allen's or some sneaker store down there. 6 o'clock in the morning,
That's a
lined
line.
up
That's a
all the
line.
way out to Jefferson to buy some new, I don't know if it was Jordans or Yeezys or whatever. My kids told me there was a new shoe that was released that day. Those people who are standing in that line, we should have just as many people standing in line for the skilled trades training. And we have nobody to blame but ourselves.
I must admit that my son, he's in skilled, he goes to skilled trades training in the morning, then he goes to high school. When he first told me about it, I hit the ceiling. I'm just
Is he
being
at
honest.
Otech?
Yeah, and I hit the ceiling because I'm like, that's just, I went through everything that I said that most people do. And then I thought about it, and he had been where high school was not his, strong suit. However, now that he's in this trade, his grades are great because he's using another side of his brain. Some people can't sit in a classroom all day long and learn from a book or sit still.
I know.
I have an issue with it.
I
sitting
do
still,
too. I was gonna
But
say.
now that he's doing something, he's using his hands and he's using his brain, he's doing very well.
Well, everybody, this is a great conversation, but we had this other topic towards the end, and we don't have as long to talk about it. And last month was Suicide Prevention Month in September. And both times I thought about you through that month. I thought about you. You lost someone, you lost someone. And I saw this article about young men who commit suicide and why. The age group is what?
It's 14 to 25.
14 to 25, suicide is the second leading cause of death in the country.
Second preventable.
Well, thank you. Because here's the thing: 90% of people who are lost to suicide have underlying mental health conditions. So that 90% to me is savable. 1,100 college students are lost to suicide every year, and you've heard me say it many times. There are many legislative issues, there are funding issues, there's access to care, there's all of that, but stigma remains the number one barrier preventing people from getting the help that they need.
Absolutely.
And we have to change that conversation and that dialogue because we're losing too many people, period, but especially young people.
Yes. If you have cancer, you get medication for cancer and no one says anything about it. Matter of fact, they cheer you on and they do whatever they can. If you have a heart problem, you get, help for it and you get cheered along. Anything from the neck down,
Exactly.
it's okay and people will support you. No one will talk back. I can't believe that you have cancer.
Yep.
But if it's from the neck up, the things that I've heard people say, and and I'll be the first to say, I'm very transparent, is the fact that I was depressed back in 2001, was diagnosed with depression, and which no one could believe, because I know how to make it look one way,
Exactly.
like most people can.
Yep.
But when it came to, do you want to take these pills? It was like, oh no, I can't be on any medication. And when I told other people about it, it became a joke that you needed help, that you're on these crazy woman pills, where I ended up not taking them. I was okay with it. But just think about that in a community that doesn't understand how your head could be just, a little different. Just like we understand your cells could have a cancerous growth. You can't understand that your brain kind of reacts a different way.
Mental illness is a chemical imbalance in the brain. It is a medical diagnosis. It is not you're weak. It's not you just playing crazy. It's not any of those social stigmas that we've attached to it. And it's a shame, as you mentioned, that we would make a person feel that way because, and I don't want to sound like a hater or anything, but like you said, if I told you that I was diagnosed with cancer, you throw a fundraiser for me,
Right.
set up a GoFundMe account,
Right.
rally around me, people shave their head for me, do all of that. But if I come to you and say I'm living with depression,
Shake their head.
anxiety,
I know,
schizophrenia,
I know.
well, no,
That's with the cancer.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
but they run away from you. And there's so many reasons
I
that we
think
should
a lot
support.
of times black people, now it's better, but in the past, years ago, they didn't believe in mental illness.
Or many of us still don't. Many still don't. You and I have talked about it. I
Yeah.
always refer to it as the soul food effect. If you saw the movie Soul Food, they had Uncle Pete stay at Big Mama's
In the
house.
basement,
Yep.
in the
attic.
Yep. And you just take them a plate of food, and that's what we did. We sent people to Big Mama's
Just go
house.
ahead and be over there
Exactly.
and do your
Ray
thing.
Ray touched.
Yeah.
All of that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
But here's what we're missing. most mental illness is very treatable, and the treatment has come so far. It's not institutionalizing you where they're doing experiments on you and electric shock therapy and you're sitting in the corner over medicated drooling on you. It's not that anymore. In many cases in mental illness, you either don't have to take medication or doctors only want you on medication for a certain period of time typically. And I was on a show with a doctor about a year ago, and he said ideally we look to prescribe medication for about a year. In many cases, now there's some cases of mental illness that are so severe that people require hospitalization, that people require to take medication, and that there's some lifelong very serious things. But most people can live a very normal life and go on and have families and careers and have successful relationships, and we're cheating ourselves out of that quality of life. And I think quality of life is just as valuable as life, as in life or death.
Right.
And we're cheating ourselves out of that.
You know, that medication piece. Why is it? Do they say it makes them sleepy? What goes on with that medication piece?
When I took an antidepressant, and that's what I was afraid of. I was going to be able to function at the time. I was a manager at a Fortune 500 company. I could not afford to be anything besides who I was. But what it does is just, it's not where you're not as excitable, you know. It wasn't making me sleepy. It wasn't making me anything like that. It was almost kind of like, you know what, I can think straight. You know, when things start coming at me, and it was actually around the time when I was diagnosed, 9/11 happened. Okay. That's the kind of thing that just took me right over the edge.
And you were young too.
Okay, relatively.
Well, you know, here's the thing with medication, and this is something that I've just become aware of in the last year. There's genetic testing for medications now, where they'll take a Q-tip swab of your cheek, just like they do with a DNA test, and they can determine what medications might work best for you based on your body genetics. That reduces a lot of this trial and error that people experience, because not only is not every mental illness diagnosis the same, but treatment's not the same. You and I can both be diagnosed with depression, but my treatment plan be very different from yours, because my body chemistry is different, because my brain still, even though we've both been diagnosed with depression, my brain reacts differently than you. And so there's no one size fits all. But there's this trial and error period that we're accustomed to, where the doctors are trying to figure out what we call the right cocktail.
So what can we do quickly, because we don't have that much time? What could we possibly do? And I know I feel like I'm cheating this conversation because it's such a longer conversation that we could have, but what can we do to start working with these young people to help prevent?
There are two areas that I think we have to work in. One is in schools, because 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness onset by the age of 14. So that's a freshman in high school. 75% of all lifetime cases onset by the age of 24. So there's your high school, college years. We need to get involved in schools. In schools,
when you say get involved, in what respect?
Schools, you need to have anti-stigma programs. You need to educate faculty and staff on how to identify.
Yeah, then
parents and
But
PTOs
also they
need
need
to
to
get
have some
involved.
type of program with coping skills.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
we did talk about that.
Well, that, and I want to throw in real quickly, our faith-based organizations need to get involved. We all know, regardless of your race, regardless of your religious background, we all, when we face crisis, we tend to run to our places of worship. And unfortunately, our places of worship, and I mean this again as respectfully as I can, are not getting engaged, because you have people sitting on pews in your church who won't seek mental health care because they feel their faith prevents them or prohibits them from doing it, or they think, and I always hate using these two words in the same sentence, just pray about it. I believe in the power of prayer, but I also believe, and I bet your faith leader will believe, if he or she has a heart attack in that pool pit on Sunday, They're going to want you all to drop to a knee and pray, but they're going to want somebody to get on the phone and call an ambulance.
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. Very much so. I agree with you. I think that it needs to be, it's kind of like a put your arms around your community holistically, as in from school, from faith-based, from family, because again, if we have you surrounded by resources and resources, then we would be able to prevent suicide. I truly, truly believe that. We all put on our different mask in the morning, because we don't want you to really know what's going on. But if we let people know that it's okay for you to take it off, or to let me know what's going on with you, and I'll help you, I won't make fun of you.
Yeah,
go a
and
long
it's
way.
okay to seek help.
Yes, it is.
It's okay.
Exactly. And we start by having this conversation. We need to talk about it. The more we talk about it, the more we tear away the stigma. So
I mean, really, this is part of a longer conversation that we really, really need to have. I believe it because I love young people. I want to, sometimes they don't see a way out.
Right.
And sometimes they don't communicate with a person. And that's another thing. Sometimes young people have to build a relationship with someone who isn't necessarily their parent.
Right.
well, and I know we're running out of time, one of the real quick myths about people who are lost to suicide, and there've been studies for people who survived attempts, is we think it's a selfish act. It's not. Many people who attempt suicide think they're helping you out. They don't want to be a burden to you anymore, or they're trying to end their pain. They're not trying to kill, and there's a difference. They're not trying to kill themselves. They're trying to end their pain.
Yes.
Thank you, both of you, so much. It seemed like the time went by so
Yeah,
quickly.
it did,
Right,
it
it did. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you again next week with Table Talk. We might extend this conversation. See you. Have a good weekend.